I gave you my heart.
Ngayong new normal, new learning mode. Welcome to online mathematics class. My name is Sir Ala, and in this video, we will gonna talk about solving quadratic equations by completing the square. In this video ay matututunan natin kung paano nga ba tayo magsosolve ng quadratic equations gamit ang completing the square. Ano nga ba ang concept ng completing the square at paano siya ginagamit sa equation para ma-solve natin yung value ng given variable. Last time, diniscuss natin yung tungkol sa pag-solve ng quadratic equations gamit ang extracting the square root. Ngayon naman, ay gagamitin natin ang completing the square to solve for a given or the exact value of a given variable. When we say quadratic equation, a quadratic equation is an equation whose the highest degree of exponent is always 2. Kapag nakakita ka ng equation ng exponent or ang highest degree of exponent ay 2, that is a quadratic equation. So kapag hindi siya 2, yung highest degree, that is not a quadratic equation. So before we proceed to our new lesson, let us have a recap of our last time's topic. Our last time's topic is all about solving quadratic equations by extracting the square root. It is said that in solving a quadratic equation gamit yung extracting the square root, if we have an example of x squared equals 36, if I'm going to find the value of x in this given equation, I'm going to find the square root of both sides of the equation. So that is the square root of x squared, that is x. And the square root of 36 will give us positive or negative 6. Because positive 6 times positive 6 is 36. And also we have negative 6 times negative 6 is 36. So therefore, the value that satisfies the equation, the value of x must be positive or negative 6. Let's say for example, I have x plus 5 squared equals 81. In finding the value of x, or in solving this quadratic equation, using extracting the square root, I'm going to find the square root of both sides of the equation, and this will give us, kapag meron tayong binomial na nakarelate sa 2, ibig sabihin isang term lang siya or isang quantity lang siya. So, ibig sabihin, kapag meron tayong isang quantity na nakarelate sa 2 and kinukuha yung square root, makakancel si 2 at saka yung square root sign, and this will give us x plus 5. That is equal to the square root of 81. We have two possible solutions. That is positive or negative 9. Because positive 9 times positive 9 is 81, and negative 9 times negative 9 is also 81. Okay, now, so wala pa tayong value ng x. To find the value of x, we are going to do an additive inverse. When we say an additive inverse, the inverse of positive 5, that is negative 5. Paano nangyayari yung additive inverse? Inililipat mo yung constant dun sa right side. So this will give us x is equal to positive or negative 9 minus 5. Okay? So in this form, we are going to separate positive from negative. To separate positive from negative, we have two possible solutions. X sub 1 is equal to positive 9 minus 5, this will give us 4. And then we have x sub 2. We have negative 9 minus 5, this will give us negative 14. Okay? So therefore, the values of x are 4 and 14. So madali na sa atin kung paano mag-solve ng quadratic equation gamit ang extracting the square root. At dahil maalam na tayo doon sa extracting the square root, let us now move on to solving quadratic equation gamit naman ang completing the square. So, kakailanganin natin dito ng application ng extracting the square root. So, ibig sabihin, i-apply natin yung extracting the square root in this lesson. Pero bago yun, alamin muna natin kung paano nga ba tayo magko-complete ng square. Okay? So, a quadratic equation is denoted by this standard equation, that is ax squared plus bx plus c, where a, b, and c are constant. Okay, let's have example number 1 in solving quadratic equation using completing the square. So, let's take a look at this one. We have x squared plus 10x plus 16 equals 0. The first thing that we need to know is to determine if this equation is a perfect square trinomial. How to determine if it is a perfect square trinomial? First thing, know the square root of x squared. If it has a square root, it is a perfect square. We know that the square root of x squared is x. Right? Now, look at the third term. The third term is 16. It is a perfect square, wherein the square root of 16 will give us 4. Okay? This will give us 4. Now, anong rule ni 10x? Okay, yung second term. Dapat, kapag pinag-add mo sa sarili si 4, dapat ang kalalabasan nito ay 8. Diba? 4 plus 4 is 8. Therefore, hindi siya perfect square trinomial. Kasi, pag pinag-plus mo si 4 sa sarili, 4 plus 4, that would be 8. So, hindi siya perfect square trinomial. Okay, nalaman na natin na itong equation na to, na itong quadratic equation na to ay hindi perfect square trinomial. So, second thing, gagawin natin siyang perfect square. Paano natin siya gagawin? Perfect square. Since itong 16 ay isang constant, I can do an additive inverse. So, itong positive 16, ililipat ko dun sa kanan, magiging negative 16. So, I will get x squared plus 10x is equal to negative 16. Now, ang hinahanap natin ay yung i-add natin sa x squared plus 10x para siya ay maging perfect square. Meron tayong formula sa pagkuha ng third term dito sa kasunod ng 10x. Ang formula dyan is b divided by 2 square. Okay? The formula is b divided by 2 square. Now, how to determine the b? We will look at the standard form of equation of a quadratic equation. So, you have ax squared plus bx plus c. We know that the numerical coefficient of x is b. So, ibig sabihin kung ano ang katabi ni x, yun ang ating value ng b. So, in this case, x squared plus 10x plus 16, ang value ng b ay 10. So therefore, we know that b is 10 and then divided by 2 and then square it. Okay? Now, 10 divided by 2 is 5. Okay? 5. And then you have square. 5 squared, that is 25. So, ibig sabihin, ito ang i-add natin sa both sides of the equation. Okay? Kung ano makuha natin dito, iyon ang i-add natin sa both sides of the equation. So, ibig sabihin, magkakaroon ako ng x squared plus 10x plus 25 is equal to negative 16 plus 25. In this case, we see that 25 is added to both equation. Hindi naapektuhan ng equation kasi kung nag-add tayo sa left side, nag-add din naman tayo sa right side. So, walang effect na mangyayari dun sa ating equation. Next, since we know that the square root of x squared is x, and the square root of 25 is 5, And the sign at the middle is a positive, so that is positive. And then, get its square. Bakit 5? Kasi 5 plus 5 is 10. Okay? Perfect square na siya. Kasi, ang square root ng 25 ay 5. And then, 5 plus 5 is 10. Therefore, ito yung square root ng buong term. So, kopyahin mo lang, square root ng x squared, x, square root ng 25, and 5. Now, para mag-verify kung siya ay perfect square, ipag-plus mo sa sarili si 5. 5 plus 5, that is 10. So, ibig sabihin, ito na siya. Lagyan mo lang ng square sa taas. That is equal to 25 minus 16 or negative 16 plus 25 will give us 9. Now, pwede na natin gamitin ang extracting the square root. Okay? So, since we have x plus 5 square equals 9, getting the square root of both sides of the equation will give us x plus 5. Okay, x plus 5 is equal to positive or negative 3. Okay, now, so we have x plus 5 is equal to positive or negative 3. So now, pag-iwalay natin siya. So this will have x sub 1 is equal to negative 5 plus 3. Si positive 5, ginamit ang additive inverse, nilipan sa right side, naging negative 5. And then plus 3, you have negative 2. And then we have x sub 2 is equal to negative 5 minus 3 will give us negative 8. Therefore, the solutions to this quadratic equation using completing the square is negative 2 and negative 8. Okay, let's have example number 2. The given equation is x squared minus 6x minus 40 is equal to 0. First thing is to determine if this equation is a perfect square trinomial. The square root of x squared will give us x. The square root of negative 40 have no square root. It is an imaginary number kasi ang square root ng negative ay walang value. Imaginary. So, ibig sabihin, understood na agad na this equation is not a perfect square trinomial. And now that we know that this equation is not a perfect square trinomial, we will do the additive inverse of negative 40 malilipat sa right side, so it will become x squared minus 6x equals 40. So, ililipat mo siya kasi hindi siya perfect square trinomial. So, maghahanap ka ngayon ng pwede mong i-add sa both sides of the equation using the formula b divided by 2 squared. So, our b is negative 6. Okay? Negative 6 divided by 2 squared. Okay? So, our b is negative 6. Kung anong sign po dito ay dala-dala ni 6. That is negative 6 divided by 2 will give us negative 3. And negative 3 squared will give us 9. Because negative 3 times negative 3 is 9. Ibig sabihin, 9 ang i-add natin sa both sides of the equation. So, we will have x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals 40 plus 9. So, in-add natin both sides yung 9 and it will not affect the equation. Now, to get the square or the square root of x squared minus 6x plus 9, square root of x, x. Square root of 9, 3. We know that 3 plus 3 is 6. Now, anong sign ang gagamitin natin dito sa gitna? Ngayon, titingin tayo dito sa sign ng middle term. Sign ng middle term ay negative. So, gamitin mo ay negative din. And then, have it quantity, and then, square. That is equal to 40 plus 9 is 49. So, now, perfect square ang left, perfect square ang right side. So, the square root of both sides will give us x minus 3 equals positive or negative square root of 9, 7. Okay, now, to find the values of x, we have two values. So, x sub 1 is equal to, ang additive inverse ng negative 3 ay positive 3. So, 3 plus 7. Yung x sub 2 ay 3 minus 7. X sub 1 will give us 3 plus 7 is 10. And x sub 2, 3 minus 7 will give us negative 4. So the solutions are 10 and negative 4. Let's have example number 3. In this case, we have 2x squared plus 4x minus 160 is equal to 0. If we have this, may katabing numerical coefficient si x squared, kailangan natin siyang tanggalin para ma-determine natin kung siya nga ba ay perfect square o hindi. Paano nga ba siya tatanggalin? Now, kung mapapansin nyo, this is divisible by 2, pwede siyang mawala kung i-divide natin siya sa 2. Now, hindi ka pwede mag-divide dito lang. Tingnan natin dun sa ibang term kung divisible din ba sila sa 2. 4x is divisible by 2. And then, 160 or negative 160 is also divisible by 2. So therefore, I can divide all terms by 2. Kasi ayaw mo na may numerical coefficient si x squared kasi hindi siya madaling i-determine kung siya nga ba ay perfect square o hindi. So divide mo by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2, and also yung 0, i-divide mo din sa 2. Kasi nga, kung anong action na ginawa mo sa left side, dapat yun din yung action na gagawin mo sa right side. So, na-cancel na to. So, you have x squared plus 4 divided by 2 is 2 times x minus 160 divided by 2 is 80 equals 0. Now, let us determine if it is a perfect square trinomial. The square root of x squared is x. The square root of negative 80 doesn't have a real solution. So therefore, this is not a perfect square trinomial. So gagawin pa natin siyang perfect square trinomial. To get its perfect square trinomial, we need to do the formula b divided by 2 squared. Okay? So our b here is 2. So you have 2 divided by 2 and then square. We all know that 2 divided by 2 is 1. Because kapag same daw ang numerator and denominator, pag pinag-divide mo, the answer is 1. And 1 raised to 2 is equal to 1. So therefore, ang gagamitin natin ay 1. So ihiwalay muna natin si negative 80 kasi hindi nga siya perfect square trinomial. So you have x squared plus 2x is equal to 80. Okay? Bakit 80? Kasi nalipat na siya. Negative 80 naging positive 80. So, ano i-add natin sa both sides? 1. So, you have x squared plus 2x plus 1 is equal to 80 plus 1. Okay? So, you have x squared plus 2x plus 1 para makuha natin yung kanyang perfect square o yung pinaka-quantity. Kunin mo lang ang square root ng x squared, that is x. Kunin mo lang ang square root ng positive 1, that is 1. Ano ba yung sign ng middle term? That is positive. So, positive na yun. And then, make it square. And then we have 80 plus 1, that is 81. Applying the concept of extracting the square root, we have the square root of this one, we have the square root of this one. will give us x plus 1 is equal to positive or negative 9. Okay, now, so to separate the values, we have x sub 1 is equal to negative 1 plus 9, and x sub 2 will give us negative 1 minus 9. X sub 1 will give us 9 minus 1 or negative 1 plus 9 is 8. And we have x sub 2, negative 1 minus 9 is negative 10. So the values of x or the solutions are 8 and negative 10. So that's all in this video lesson. And for more videos, kindly like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. God bless us always. Math is everywhere, and math loves everybody. Kaya huwag kayong matatakot sa math. Kasi ang math ay ating kaibigan. Kasama natin sa anumang hamon ng buhay. Kaya halika na, mag-math na tayo.
I give you my heart.